One time, my friend Stephanie Gray, she was doing a public pro-life display, and she was talking with a stranger named Aaron. And Aaron had the courage to actually say to her, "You're not like the other guy. You're being mean." And Stephanie also admitted, she said she could feel these feelings welling up inside of her. She's getting very mad at Aaron. She was annoyed at him, frustrated, even judging him. And so she had the courage actually to say to him, "I'm sorry," and she became more kind. So can you think of a time that you got emotional when the subject of abortion came up? Maybe the other person, you say, "Why aren't they listening? Why don't they get it? Why aren't they hearing the truth?" Maybe you're thinking, "Well, why isn't this person being more compassionate?" So we're getting angry. And Stephanie uses the story I just told you in her book on abortion. She uses it to show how whenever we're talking to someone about abortion, it's not about winning an argument. It's about a conversation with another soul, and that person is very sacred. So before we get into the pro-life arguments, for the next 3 weeks, we will get into the pro-life arguments. But today, we just want to focus on the pro-life attitude. So we're going to look at the gospel, the Beatitudes that Jesus gives us, because these are the qualities qualities of love that we aim for as Catholics and pro-lifers. So Stephanie, she did the right thing. After she apologized, she became more kind. But notice, she didn't back down. She didn't all of a sudden become weak and say, "Oh, okay, let's just agree to disagree." No, because the Beatitudes teach us we have to be very morally strong and at the same time very compassionate. So if we want to love the way Jesus taught, let's quickly look at each of the 8 Beatitudes. So the first one, there it is. To be poor in spirit means that we know we need God. So none of us here are very smart. None of us here are very holy. None of us here are even very strong. And you might, in the past, when you've talked about abortion, maybe you've been arrogant. Maybe you've been cowardly. So we need God. We know that. And because all of us here, we want to aim to be poor in spirit, we will never condemn anyone who's had an abortion, because we're all sinners. And those of us who have been here for a while, you know, we've already had 3 people in our church share about their own abortion experiences and about how God has healed them, how God has been very merciful. So we're going to love everyone the same, no matter what we've done. The next beatitude, to mourn, according to the biblical mentality, it doesn't just mean to be sad about anything. To mourn means you're sad about sin. So when Jesus looked at the city of Jerusalem, he cried because he saw something he loved turn away from God. And so all of us, if we're going to be loving people, you want to mourn, be sad about sin, including the sin of abortion. The next beatitude, St. Matthew tells us that Jesus was meek when he rode a donkey into Jerusalem, because at that time it's the horse. The horse was the animal for war. The horse was the animal that kings would ride on. So when Jesus takes the donkey, he's choosing humble means. So if we're going to overcome abortion, definitely we have to be public. We have to be very upfront. But our primary means will be very humble. It's going to be prayer and fasting. Let's pause on the next beatitude. To be a loving person, you have to love righteousness. And this is why so many spiritual authors criticize being nice. Why is being nice not very loving? Because usually when we're very nice, we're so chill, we take it easy, we don't want to offend anyone, so we don't challenge anyone to be morally great, because Jesus calls us to be morally perfect. And so it is a loving thing to actually challenge people in a loving way to be morally perfect. When we hunger, you can't rest until you eat. You have to eat. And so what we're focused on is righteousness, and righteousness is just God's will. Do you want God's will to be done? Are you hungry for it? And this is very different than what the world teaches. We've talked about this, I think, 2 times. The world keeps on shifting basically every year. What they say is the moral crisis of our time. So in 2015, everyone was concerned about the Syrian refugee crisis. Changes the next few years. 2018, there are wildfires in California. Everyone says it's now climate change. 2020, Black Lives Matter. And then 2021, residential schools. It keeps on shifting. And nothing's really changing. That is not righteousness. I said 4 years ago, the world, according to its own standards, should focus more on the country of Yemen. Why? Because back then, and even today on the United Nations website, it says this: Yemen is now the largest humanitarian crisis in the world. The largest. But the media don't care about the Yemeni people. This is not right. At least, if we're going to aim for righteousness, you have to be consistent. And so we're trying to be. We're not, but we're trying to be. If we're going to aim for righteousness and be consistent, then we keep on asking ourselves every year the same question: who are the people in most need? Who are the most defenseless? And the argument we're making is that it's the preborn. Next beatitude. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, Jesus shows us what true mercy is. Mercy loves anyone who is in need. If you see someone in physical need, you help them. If you see someone in spiritual need, you help them even more, because that's more important. And anyone who supports abortion, we say they're in need of truth. So we love them. They're in need of goodness. We love them. My friend Stephanie wrote in her book that sometimes if you see a person, you're talking to them about abortion, they look really mad. She says that might be a mask for another emotion, maybe embarrassment, maybe sadness. Because when she talks to people, sometimes they start realizing that their arguments are kind of flawed. So they're embarrassed, but they actually look angry to cover it. Or sometimes they're sad because maybe there's a past abortion somewhere in their life. And Stephanie's point is that if you ever see someone mad when talking about abortion, don't rub it in. Don't make it worse, because we all know what it's like to be embarrassed, to be sad. We just want to be very merciful with people. Next beatitude. In 1979, in Norway, during her acceptance speech for the Nobel Peace Prize, St. Mother Teresa said that those who are pure in heart are the people who see God in each other. If we see God in other people, we have a pure heart. And she said, we're all going to be judged on the way we treat the homeless, the poor, the naked, the hungry. And she said, the greatest destroyer of peace in the world is abortion. So I'm going to show you a 2-minute clip right now of that speech.
And I feel one thing I want to share with you all. The greatest destroyer of peace today is the cry of the innocent, unborn child. For if a mother can murder her own child in her own womb, what is left for you and for me to kill each other? Even if mother could forget. But today, millions of unborn children are being killed. And we say nothing. In the newspapers, you read numbers of this one, that one being killed, this being destroyed. But nobody speaks of the millions of little ones who have been conceived with the same life as you and I, with the life of God. And we say nothing. We allow it. To me, the nations who have legalized abortion, they are the poorest nation. They are afraid of little one. They are afraid of the unborn child. And the child must die because they don't want to feed one more child, to educate one more child. The child must die. And so today, let us here make a strong resolution. We are going to save every little child, every unborn child, give them a chance to be born. And what we are doing, we are fighting abortion by adoption. And the good God has blessed the work so beautifully. that we are saved thousands of children, and thousands of children have found a home where they are loved, they are wanted, they are cared. We have brought so much joy in the homes where there was not a child. And so today I ask, since His Majesty is here, and before you all who come from different countries, let us all pray that we have the courage to stand by the unborn child and give the child an opportunity to love and to be loved. And I think with God's grace, we will be able to bring peace in the world.
Because of statements like that, a lot of people have attacked Mother Teresa. So I read one article that actually called her a heartless bitch. And then the famous atheist, Christopher Hitchens, he wrote a book about Mother Teresa with this very insulting title. But here's the thing. If we do what's right, of course we'll be persecuted. Jesus says today, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake." Actually, it's a sign that we're doing the right thing. If we love people, we will be persecuted. And it's interesting. If you're not being persecuted, you might not actually be very loving. Because whenever we love people, we speak what's good for them, not what feels good. So starting February 23rd, the day after Ash Wednesday, we're going to have our 40 Days for Life annual vigil right outside of BC Women's Hospital where they do abortions. So it's just a very calm, it's public, but we don't engage people on purpose at all. We're just there to witness and pray for an end to abortion. So it's going to be starting the day after Ash Wednesday. In the next 3 weeks, we're going to invite everyone to sign up. Just think today, if you would, think about actually joining this year, February 23rd. It's going to be a great Lenten penance, by the way, right? It's a great sacrifice. We're going to finish now with a video from my friend Stephanie Gray. This is when she went to Google headquarters in 2017 in California. So God bless them. They actually invited her. That's very good for them. The video has 335,000 views so far, and Stephanie said it was very well received by the audience. So what we're going to pay attention to in this clip is Stephanie's attitude. She's clear, she's pro-life, and she's loving. And the story she tells about this woman named Debbie, who's had an abortion, she's equally clear, pro-life, and very loving. So they're living out Jesus' Beatitudes. And so that's what we want to aim for to have our pro-life attitude.
Debbie's story is similar to Leanna's and Veronica's in that she was unexpectedly pregnant. But unlike Leanna's and Veronica's story, Debbie had an abortion. And she deeply regrets having made that choice, but realizes, like all of us, she cannot undo her past. But she became convicted that if she had regrets, and she knew the impact of her choice back then that she lives with now, that she would have wanted someone to tell their story. And so she's decided to tell her story to try to help people think differently when it comes to the crisis they're in. And so she travels to different audiences and she talks about her choice and she talks about regretting it. And once she was in an audience where a student had a friend en route to an abortion clinic, and he simply sent his friend a text. "There's a woman here who regrets her abortion." And the friend texted back, "Why?" And so this young woman was willing to sit down with Debbie and listen to not only Debbie's story, but give Debbie an opportunity to listen to her and what her reasonings were for abortion. And she felt she had no support, that she couldn't get through that pregnancy and parenting. So Debbie said, "I'll support you, and your friend here will support you." That girl didn't go to the abortion clinic that day, but she did go the next day to hear her child's heartbeat. And then she decided to carry through with that pregnancy. And several months later, this baby girl was born. And to wrap everything up before we move it into questions, I just want to leave you with the thought that whether it's this teenage mom who not only is delighted that she has this baby, but she encouraged another friend to carry through with a pregnancy that friend is grateful to have. Whether it's this teenage mom, or whether it's Debbie, or whether it's Leanna, or Veronica, whether it's little Brooke or her parents, whether it's Captain Sullenberger, who prioritized the passengers on his airplane, whether it's Nick Vujicic, that you remember all these people and think, you know, they're inspiring because they put others ahead of themselves, because they had perspective, and because they did the right thing, even when it was really hard. And that's the challenge that I leave all of you with today. Thank you very much.